Ladies and gentlemen, I'm quite pleased to be here on behalf of the Ghana Chamber of Mines and also on behalf of EFEDCOM, as we call it, the ECOWAS Federation of Chamber of Mines. Quite excited about this opportunity to present because it provides an opportunity for us to have a conversation about the mining industry, not just in Ghana, but within West Africa. And EFEDCOM, ECOWAS Federation of Chamber of Mines, we believe, has a significant role to play to ensure that we are able to optimize, the benefits of the mining industry within West Africa for the good people of the region. So this will be my presentation short outline. Introduction of EFEDCOM, who we are, members of EFEDCOM, the major minerals mined by country in West Africa, the present survey of mining companies and so on and so forth, top gold producing countries in Africa, where we stand as West Africa, recent developments in mining investments in West Africa, average effective tax rate, because that we believe is very, very critical to government. And then mining fiscal regime issues around mining fiscal regimes. Because essentially for a lot of people, when you're talking about the benefits of mining, that is the first thing you look at. And then we also look at critical ingredients for sustainable investment climate, value chain approach to mining investment, the role that is the critical question, what do we have to do as EFEDCOM? And then some recommendations which we believe should be takeaways for all of us. So EFEDCOM, like I said, is a private sector voluntary mining organization in West Africa, established in the year 2016 as a company limited by guarantee, mirrored on the structures of the Ghana Chamber of Mines. I'm sure most of you are aware of what the Chamber of Mines actually stands for. And this is our mission, effectively to advocate for policies to promote sustainable and responsible mining, similar to the mission statement of the Ghana Chamber of Mines. So here we are talking about addressing the needs of stakeholders, not just the needs of mining firms or mining companies, but government as well, and then the interest of civil society as well and communities. One of our key objectives is to sensitize member states through campaigning and advocacy for enactment of effective policy. That is a major objective of the EFEDCOM. How do we work together? What kind of advocacy do we have to do to ensure that we have effective mining policy? Because that is where it all starts from. If you get the policies wrong, then you are doomed. And because of the work of ECOWAS, most of the policies will be coming from policies as agreed at the regional level. In fact, ECOWAS has what it calls ECOWAS Minerals Development Strategy. And most of these policies that we see implemented in various countries actually take roots from this document. And therefore it's important that even as we engage, we also have the opportunity to be interacting with ECOWAS so that we ensure that they really understand the broad brush of what mining is, so that we can have effective policies to guide our industry. So who are the members of EFEDCOM? Currently, I think we have about 7 members. We started off with 4 members, but EFEDCOM is growing. So we have Ghana, we have Guinea, we have Côte d'Ivoire, we have Burkina Faso, and we also have Togo. And a couple of weeks ago, we got Mali, applying for membership. So it's still work in progress, but you can see that the serious mining jurisdictions within West Africa are beginning to come into our fold. The Secretariat of EFEDCOM is at the Ghana Chamber of Mines, our offices. There's a dedicated Secretariat for EFEDCOM, and that is where the work of EFEDCOM is actually done. So let's just look at some of the major minerals mined by country within West Africa, some of the big mining countries. You have Ghana, Togo, you have gold, for Ghana, manganese, bauxite, because you have some diamond as well. And then you also have Togo, principally for slate, although we know they report some gold production. Nigeria, tin, gold, nickel, Burkina Faso, some gold, Ivory Coast gold, Liberia, you have iron, gold, diamond, and so on and so forth. But what runs through is that for almost each of the countries you find that gold runs through. And therefore shows how important gold is to West Africa mining industry. But what we did was to look at the President's Survey of Mining Companies. It provides a kind of background for investors. If you really want to go into a jurisdiction, this is what you look at now. For every serious mining investor, globally we'll be looking at the Fraser Institute, survey of mining companies, just to make a commercial decision, an investment decision. So what we tried to do was to look at each of the company or countries within the score and the ranking, and segment them into West Africa, the regions within Africa. So you have West Africa, you have East Africa, Southern Africa, and Central Africa. And it shows clearly that West Africa is quite competitive. Perception around West Africa mining environment is quite positive. And again, even the potential, for mining, within West Africa is also active. It's also very, very good. We generally tend to do much better than Southern Africa, East Africa, and Central Africa. So essentially, the expectation is that when investors want to go into gold mining, naturally, the first port of call will be to consider West Africa, always. So what are the recent developments? And this is just a snapshot of some of the key issues taking place within West Africa. Conveniently, I decided not to talk about Ghana because we know so much about Ghana. But if you look at reforms and changes in fiscal regimes and so on and so forth, just so that countries will reposition their countries to attract investment. You look at Burkina Faso. I was there last year for their Sanao, and trust me, I was blown away. The number of investors, the exhibition they mounted, groundbreaking. Even if you go to Indaba, you would find them aggressively promoting their industry. I remember eavesdropping onto a presentation by Nigeria where they claimed that the so-called gold coming from Ghana going to Dubai, which is being misreported by Ghana, is not actually coming from Ghana, or not originating from Ghana, it is coming from Nigeria. The jury is still out there, but it just shows you how seriously our leaders are actually taking the mining industry, especially when it comes to gold production. But the good thing is that Ghana is still the place to be. But we can't take it for granted. And therefore we need to reposition ourselves to ensure that when it comes to mining investment, we are the number one. This is something we have said time without number to policymakers and say, yes, we know that we are a very, very attractive jurisdiction. We talk about how conducive our environment is, political stability and all of that. But trust me, I was privileged to listen to a presentation again at PDAC, and there was this gentleman, the managing director of one of the companies in Burkina Faso. He did a fantastic presentation. He said, yes, we know there are security challenges in Burkina Faso, but we are able to manage this. The resources are there, and we will continue to invest and expand our operations. So we can't take this for granted as Ghana to say that yes, we have headline conducive environment and therefore we will go to sleep. We need to continue to find, by engaging with industry, finding out what can we tweak. And here we are not talking about racing to the bottom, but what can we continuously do to ensure that we continue to have the pride place when it comes to investment in West Africa. I spoke about the fiscal regime, and for a lot of people, that is the thing to look at. And one of the things we decided to do was to look at the effective tax rate. And it shows, if you look at West Africa, effective tax rate is about 59%, which is pretty high. But of course, this is led by Ghana. If you look at the average and look at Ghana's effective tax rate, 66.5%, it just tells you that our fiscal regime is quite tight for the mining industry. And no wonder we keep crying that we continue to struggle to get greenfield investments coming into the mining industry. But I had a conversation with the Canadian High Commissioner, I think it was last year or so, and we spoke about our competitiveness as a country. And I remember she ended the conversation saying that, Mr. Koney, you guys have to be up and doing as a country. Burkina Faso has become the leading destination for Canadian dollars in the mining industry. And it's something we have to be worried about. But for us at EFEDCOM, it's about how do we collaborate? How do we reposition West Africa as the place to be? Even as we compete, we need to be cooperating as well. And that's where the philosophy or what the strategists call cooperation. We are cooperating even as we are competing. Because if we are able to reposition West Africa as a haven for mining investment, naturally, it will inure to our collective benefit. So there are issues around fiscal regime. And fiscal regime is important because for government, that is the take, and that is generally what they perceive to be the benefits they get from the mining industry. But is that true? Is that all there is to it? If you are talking about the benefits of mining. For us, benefits of mining go beyond that. And again, it's about how we perceive and reposition ourselves even as we want to attract investment. Do you attract a Newmont or a Perseus or an Anglo-Gold Ashanti to come into your country to come and mine, and all you look at is what do I get in terms of corporate tax, royalties, and dividends? That for us is suboptimal. Because we know that mining, the chairman mentioned it, Tony mentioned it, is the catalyst for development. And therefore, if we just focus on just the fiscals, then we are losing the bigger picture. Mining should help us to develop our country. This morning, I heard someone of note talking about do an assessment of how far we have come as a country and as an industry, and for the chamber to take leadership. But what are the metrics? What would go into it? If you are looking at development, then naturally you are looking far and beyond the fiscals. And it's important that as a region and as a country, we continue to look at what the key elements of development are. In fact, even when you look at fiscals and you collect the monies, how do you even judiciously utilize this revenue? That is another subject matter for conversation. Yes, governments will say we are not getting enough from the industry. Of course, there will be tension because the investor would also believe that he's giving you so much based upon the terms of agreement. So how do we even manage this to ensure that there is win-win all the time? Because that is the prerequisite for a conducive and sustainable investment climate. Otherwise, you would find what we have heard about in the recent past. Magafuli. I think there's something called Magafuli. We all know what the story is. Without consultation, he said, no, I'm increasing royalty to so much. And it's easy, isn't it? Because royalties are the top. You take the revenue and then you lump it up. And it's easy to do. But you do that at the peril of the industry. And it may not show today. Because once you start doing that, it will reflect in the index we talked about earlier on. Isn't it? The perception index. You may have the resources, but the perception for investors will be so low that down the line, your industry will suffer. Again, you have a situation where we believe that there is base erosion. Base erosion, and it's a two-way street. Governments believe that companies erode the base of taxation, so to speak. They increase their costs where they can, costs which are deductible, and then eventually what is available for taxation is small. That is a perception. I'm sure most of us have heard about the Africa Progress Panel and the conclusions they come to. Illicit financial flows. we've seen this, we've read about this. But sometimes I ask the question, show me one. Let's zoom it down to Ghana. Show me which companies are fleecing our country. On the flip side, companies also have challenges. They are saying, government, anytime you have the opportunity to price an input into the industry, you charge us an arm and a leg. Levies, taxes, duties, what have you, which are not cost reflected. They have no bearing at all on the operations of the mine. So for effectively what we are saying is that we have a backdoor taxation. And therefore, if a GRA reports that this is so much I received from the mining industry, for example, for the ease of conversation, say 100 million Ghana cedis, so to speak. And that, of course, is what it collects by way of royalties and corporate tax and so on and so forth. But what about the levies, which are not applicable? And there are a number of them, and we have been raising with government to say, look, you believe that you are not getting enough. But one of the reasons why you have this challenge is because you are taking some of these, benefits through the back door. And therefore, when you are reporting headline, these benefits don't show. So we need to have transparency. These things should be done in a transparent manner. So I talked about government stake versus investor stake. Always tenuous. What is government stake and what is investor stake? And once you have transparency around this and look at it in a more comprehensive manner, rather than just a high-level direct collections, so to speak, from the industry, then we'll be having a good conversation. In fact, we did a study a number of years ago, and it showed that for every dollar that a mining company would make, government would make 60% more, especially when you consider the value chain. Because unfortunately, when it comes to mining, looking at the value chain appears to be a difficulty for us. But we believe that that is where the benefits are. So we need to have a value chain approach, value chain taxes and levies I talked about. And I also mentioned about some of the concerns of government, intra-company cost of capital, okay, raising capital from within a company. What is the cost? And sometimes they also allude to management fees. But these are things government should be able to be transparently knowledgeable about, because these are reported by the companies in their financials as well. So we are talking about the need for deep-seated knowledge of investment models for extractive industry. Because we need that understanding. What do the parties go to the negotiation table with? Because if we go to the negotiation table blindly, then naturally what you will get may be suboptimal. And there's every reason for government to actually beef up capacity. Need to really understand what mining is about. And there are various models. There was one I know about vaguely, and that is the FARI model. Those of you in financial modeling and all of that. These are basics which we need to know, so we don't accuse or blame government or companies of actually shortchanging us. Let's make sure that we improve our capacity, our knowledge of the mining industry. Mining industry is so important to our countries, especially within the SADC region, and it's important that we really understand its key nuances. Of course, investment agreements also allowed some tweaking of the fiscal regime. So you could have a high-level fiscal regime, for example, royalty of 5%, which is flat at the moment. But then once you have an investment agreement, there's scope for the parties, governments and companies to get together and agree what it will be. So what are the critical ingredients for a sustainable investment climate? That is a big question. Because mining itself is long term. Because mining itself is faced with a situation where it doesn't even control its revenues. Yeah, it can control its revenues by probably producing more. But the real thing has to do with the cost or the price, so to speak. Now, if the price is out of your hands as a business, then what you can play with is your cost. How do you manage your costs? Through the value chain from A to Z. And that is why companies will require a predictable, certain, and relatively stable regime. It's so critical. You don't have a situation where today royalty is 3%, tomorrow is 4%, another day it is 5% because you find a big gap in your budget you need to fill. It doesn't work that way. Because don't forget what we are talking about. These are long-term investments. You model them. You go and borrow money. You get money from shareholders. And there's an expectation that this will be the returns. And oftentimes, sometimes the returns don't even come in the short to medium term. It's long-term investment. On the flip side, you have a situation where the moment you break ground and you start production, government steps in, cup in hand, GIA, giving you a route, whether you make profit or not. So it's important that we have this predictable, certain, and relatively stable regime under which mining companies will work. Of course, threats of expropriation, hindrance to repatriation of profits and capital are a no-no for an investment climate which seeks to attract investment. Of course, we need mutual trust between companies and their host governments, so to speak. It is so critical, but it takes two to tango, isn't it? So let's be open, let's be transparent, let's have honest conversations. But of course, if the knowledge is not there, especially from government. So one of the key learnings for me is how do we ensure that governments really understand the mining industry? And how can the mining industry also help government to actually upscale? It's critical. And it serves our interest as an industry if our regulators, especially those in the finance space, those who collect the money, understand our business. Many companies will tell you, once a GRA comes and it says it's conducting an audit, and sometimes don't get one, 2, 3, 4 times, special audit, special audit, special audit. But once that understanding is there, we have pulled them along the way, giving them understanding and capacity to understand our business. That would serve us well. Remember, I talked about catalysts for development, and it's important that even as we try to solicit for investment, let's look at the value chain approach. It's so critical. Let's look at a value chain approach. We have said it here. Mining is not just digging a hole and paying taxes. It's a catalyst for development. And until we realize this, even before we go out there soliciting for investment into our jurisdictions, whatever we'll get out of our mining industry will be suboptimal. So effectively what we are saying is that how do you map all the opportunities around the mining industry and see how that relates to other opportunities within your country and to some extent the sub-region. Because some of these opportunities cannot be done on a country-by-country basis. You have gold, as we have illustrated, cuts across West Africa. And therefore there is so much scope and opportunity for us to work together. We have ECOWAS within West Africa. What are we doing to our mining industry, especially gold mining industry, working together with ECOWAS to ensure that we harness this for ourselves and our people. Transparent, equitable, and optimal exploitation for broad-based socio-economic development. That is what the African Mining Vision talks about. It doesn't just talk about fiscals. So that is the point. It should be broad-based and it should ensure socio-economic development. So what are the linkages between the mining industry and the rest of the economy? Let's ensure that we harness them optimally. What are the manufacturing and fabrication opportunities around the mining industry? There are a number of them. Let's identify them. One of the good things the Chamber of Mines has done recently is to ask UMA to do us a favor. And what is this favor? He said, look, we have been talking about opportunities around the mining industry for decades, Tony. So many decades. But it's important that now we have a blueprint. So that's the academia. Help us. Do the research, we'll help you. And let's map all of these things. So when we are talking, we are not just speaking, but we know exactly what we are talking about. And once this is done, we'll have a conversation with government and say, let's identify these areas, the areas where we have a competitive advantage, and go there and produce. First to serve the mining industry, but then the larger opportunity will be to serve other sectors of the economy. In fact, the largest will be when we are even able to supply to West Africa. Of course, there are issues around competitiveness of inputs, the quality, and so on and so forth, but the expectation is that this will be addressed. Commodity-based industrialization is the way it should be. How can we leverage the mining industry for industrialization? Because if you are looking at the value chain approach, then you will be able to make a better meaning of the investments that you have, of the resources that you have. That we are leveraging our industry to grow generic industry. And that for us is the way to go. Bauxite, we know government has been talking about in the recent past. But are we looking at it holistically? Or just the value addition part of it? Value addition is fine. But I believe there are serious opportunities which needs to be harnessed, which will allow us to do other things which normally we wouldn't have been able to do. Gold refining is another one. Government has been talking about gold refining and so on and so forth. But for us, as an industry, the real deal is more downstream value addition, jewelry, minting, and so on and so forth. Of course, there are issues about certification. Because without certification, where and how do you even sell the product? How do you sell the gold? And of course, even as you endeavor to do all of these things, just ensure that there's no value destruction. Because at the end of the day, you want to enhance value within the country. Issues around project financing. Where do we get equity from? Where do we get debt from? These are things we have to be talking about. A number of years ago, we had a conversation with Ghana Stock Exchange. But again, how do we broaden the conversation? Because I know that there are conversations around, harmonizing the bosses within West Africa, so that on the back of these bosses, how can we raise capital from within West Africa, both debt and equity? So what will the ECOWAS do? ECOWAS would continue to advocate for West Africa as a hub for mining, especially gold mining. And this, we've done a couple of times at PDAC in Toronto. Last year and this year, we had the privilege to do this advocacy together with other sub-regional bodies, NIASA, and so on and so forth. And we continue to do advocacy to government to say, no knee-jerk reaction. When there are issues, let's get around the table and talk. No magafuli. And I'm getting the sense that this is the way we want to go as a country and as a region. No wonder we continue to score high on the Fraser Institute Index. Policies come from ECOWAS. We will continue to engage with them. In our work plan next year, we should be interacting with the ECOWAS Commission and having a conversation regarding how we can work together to reposition the sub-region as a haven for mining investment. Thought leadership, how can we lead with ideas to unravel some of the challenges in the mining industry to ensure that we have mutually beneficial outcomes? Because that is the way for sustainability. So even as you negotiate, ensure that there are mutually beneficial outcomes. What do we do to ensure that we don't have, I have a friend who says, in my food, I don't want cowboys, people who don't, or companies who don't behave responsibly. Effective membership governance. You break the rules, we'll check you out. It's not just about numbers, it's about effective numbers. Image branding is everything. And you should understand that you want to be a part of the Chamber of Mines, part of the ECOWAS, then there are strict rules. Code of conduct you have to comply with. So a few recommendations I have. I said mutually beneficial outcomes. FARI is a starting point for government. Let's make sure you understand it. To embolden us, to strengthen us, even as we go to the negotiations. Because once you understand it, you really understand as a negotiator that for all intents and purposes you are getting even much more than you think. Certainty of environment, predictability of environment is key. Talking about both parties behaving responsibly, no knee-jerk, reaction, no carbonism, breaking the rules, cutting corners. And then again, it is not just about rent, it's about development. Mining is about development. How do we ensure that even as we are going out there to negotiate for business, we think about the developmental outcomes of mining? And then again, when it comes to openness and transparency, I think these days, the global standard for transparency is the WAIC. Countries within West Africa which are not signing on to WAIC will be encouraged to sign on. It's not just about transparency, but it's about conversation, and we have learned it over the years. I remember when I joined the industry, there was no way you could have government, civil society, and private sector sitting around the table to talk about mining. There was no way. I know that Ghana is one of the shining stars when it comes to WAIC. They don't tell us, but privately they tell us, because the so-called new standard came from the work of the Ghana WAIC. They learned from us. The World Bank representatives came to our office and mentioned this to us. So that is the spirit in which we should work. Mutually beneficial outcomes. That is what will ensure sustainability. Cutting corners will not help. WAIC is good. It encourages conversation, it encourages discussion.